Virtual Racing School was developed to provide support to the next generation of sim racers. No matter if you're a rookie or veteran or what car or track you'll be racing, our goal is to provide training every step of the way. We found that iRacing can be quite difficult without proper training. There needed to be a way to prepare for on-track racing. With VRS, you can literally learn from the best sim racers in the world, including 4-time NASCAR iRacing World Champion Ray Alfala.
And Ray Alfala is a 4-time champion of the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series.
3-time iRacing Grand Prix World Champion Martin Kroenke.
Martin Kroenke becomes a 3-time world champion.
Rallycross World Champion Mitchell de Jong.
Mitchell de Jong is now champion for the iRacing Rallycross World Championship Series.
And many other top sim racers. Data packs include everything you need to start learning. Our World Championship coaches create the data packs by setting a hot lap or a series of fast laps for you to compare, analyze, and replicate. Data packs also include a tutorial where the coach points out techniques they use to hit the fast lap. This gives you access to the latest driving techniques and setups before you even hit the track. Sign up for a free account and download the VRS telemetry logger. With this application running seamlessly in the background, your laps automatically start syncing to the VRS website. From there, you can analyze and compare 2 laps of your choice, whether it's your data, the coaches, or your teammates. VRS will automatically target improvement opportunities so you can get up to speed even faster. VRS also makes it easy for you to request and schedule one-on-one or group coaching sessions. These sessions can range from 30 to 90 minutes, and you can select the car, track, and setup combination of your choice. Visit virtualracingschool.com today to sign up and get started.
Good evening, iRacers, and welcome to Apex Racing TV's coverage of the Finding Speed GT3 League. We are here at the historic Nurburgring circuit and the Grand Prix layout for round 4 of the season. And what a great season it's been so far in these GT3 cars. We've been all around the world so far, starting at Road Atlanta, then on to Nurburgring, back at Road America, and then across back to Europe again. So we've been bouncing between the 2 continents so far, and then for the final round in 2 weeks' time, we'll be taking our one and only trip into the Far East and Suzuka. My name is Lee Thompson, and joining me today on commentary is going to be Dane Baird, with Samuli Kumo looking after everything behind the scenes and the production. Evening, Dane. Like I say, we've seen pretty much a cracker race kind of each round so far. I think we're going to see the same here today at Nurburgring. It should be a circuit that suits these GT3 cars, I think.
Yeah, it usually does, the Nurburgring circuit. It's most historically known for the Nordschleife, but we're not going up there this time. We're here at the GP circuit, so what the Formula 1 cars would have used last season. But yeah, it's a very, very good circuit. We've got lots of, quite a few overtaking opportunities throughout the circuit. The cars can run pretty close together throughout this circuit, so hopefully we get another good race. As you said, we've had 3 pretty good races so far in this season, but definitely getting to crunch time in the championship. Just this round and the final round in 2 weeks at Suzuka left to go, so the drivers really do want to be getting some good points here today.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty critical, I suspect, for some of the drivers at the top of their respective classes to really make sure, like you say, they get a solid result and give themselves a chance to to get the position that they want in the final standings of the championship, like you say. So as you can see on screen at the minute, the timer ticking away in the top left-hand corner, and coming up to the last 5 minutes of the drivers' practice session here at Nurburgring. And possibly, Dane, there could be a slight upset on the cards, because after the first hour and a half of practice, we're currently seeing a Pro Silver driver topping the standings, Scott Rister, done a cracking job so far, 1/10 up on our kind of perpetual series leader for the season, Tom Dadswell, back in second. Rister had a good outing last time out, finished 6th overall, 3rd in class. We're going to have to wait and see whether he can pull out that sort of time, a 1:54.8 in qualifying or not.
Yeah, definitely the first time that we've seen a Pro Silver driver up at the very top, beating all of the golds and the rest of his Pro Silver compatriots. But it's definitely going to be interesting qualifying, because we've got a large spread in the field, not just in times but in classes, because we've got, as you can see, Erden in 6th overall but 1st in Pro Bronze, and is ahead of all but 2 of the Pro Silver drivers, and only behind 3 of the Pro Gold as well. So up there near the top, again, quite a few Pro Bronze and Pro Silver drivers spread throughout the field. You've got some Pro Golds in the midfield of the field. You've got Jensen Adriansen's in 4th in Pro Gold, but pretty far down the order in terms of overall position. And this is only practice. We'll see what they can do in qualifying, whether the Pro Bronze drivers and the Pro Silver drivers will be able to match the Pro Golds in 1 lap pace when they've only got a few minutes to do so. But it's not looking fantastic for some of the Pro Gold drivers. They are well within that Pro Bronze and Pro Silver range at the moment.
Yeah, no, definitely interesting for sure. It could get a little bit messy out there if this is kind of how qualifying turns out as well. So if you're new to the series, or just to remind you otherwise, here we've got a 20-minute qualifying session coming up after this. It will be open qualifying, so just like there are now, they'll be kind of fighting over a bit of space on track, trying to find their gap there, a bit of breathing space to get that kind of one critical lap in to get their best possible starting position then for the race. And that race will be a 45-minute event. The guys are going to have a mandatory pit stop due to limited fuel capacity. So somewhere between sort of 1/3 to 2/3 through the race is when we should expect to see that pit window tend to open. And for the majority of the season, we've seen people kind of push it really as late as they can. We've had 1 or 2 rounds where a couple of drivers have managed to squeeze out 1 extra lap, and that's really caused a little bit of an upset and a real change in the strategy for the pit stops and allowed them to jump ahead. So we'll have to see if we get anything similar here today. I mean, it's a long old lap, a 2-minute lap, so I guess that's less likely. But yeah, for sure, we're going to see yes, a good action with this, say, 45-minute race and enforced pit stops as well. Right, whilst we're counting down to these last few minutes of practice, let's have a quick look at the championship standings, and we'll start off with the Pro Gold category. So yeah, as you've heard us mention already, we've got the Pro Gold, the Pro Silver and the Pro Bronze classes. So we can see that Tom Dadswell is at the top of the Pro Gold class at the minute. He's had an absolutely dominant season so far in this Finding Speed League. Yeah, 83 points overall. But to be fair, with the point system as it is, Yusi Kataya isn't a million miles away, 72 points in 2nd place. Then we've got Jensen Edgensons in 3rd, Mikko Malkavara in 4th, Stephen Broomfield 5th, Roman Kubin in 6th, Dominicus Yevasea in 7th, Billy Fletcher 8th, Ryan Walker in 9th, Russell Barnes in 10th. Do we see Russell in the session today? I don't think so. So he told us a couple of weeks ago he was suffering with an injury, and yeah, I don't see him in a session, so I think he's unfortunately not with us still. Russell Barnes, the series organizer, he is Mr. Finding Speed. And then we've got Lockie Brown in 11th, 10th, Bradbury in 12th in the standings there. For the Pro Silver class, we've got Dara Edgensons in top position at the minute with 70 points. But we can see, just as it was last week, in fact, it's super, super close still in this Pro Silver class. So Tom Brown then just 2 points behind, and still Stin Van Neeren, another equal 2nd, but kind of 3rd on countback. Anthony Beck then in 4th, Dan Carter 5th, Jacob Bosseroff in 6th, Richard Jones in 7th, Juan Manuel 8th, Dan Murray in 9th, and Phil Regan in 10th position. And then for the Pro Bronze category, we've got Timothy Bray still, well, I was going to say still leading the pack, but look at that. Top 3 drivers all on exactly the same points, 67 points for the three of them. So Timothy, if memory serves, had a tough week out there last round, so he needs to try and improve again and get a bank of points in to try and cement that position at the top. But yeah, then Luke Davis in second, Angel Pedrero in third, then still only 2 points further back, Ed Knight in fourth, Alex Peck in fifth, then down to Cole Gray in sixth, Kosh Kelly seventh, Matt Knudsen in eighth, Darren Doherty in ninth, and Robert Odoms then in 10th position. And then we've also got the Teams Championship running as well. We can see that at the minute, Indy Autosport have got a slim lead there, just 2 points over Race Gear. A little bit of breathing space enter, Altitude Esports back in third, Ignium Motorsport fourth, and Ignium Motorsport Spark in fifth position. So, yeah, so that is the point standings out there. But actually, perhaps I see now in the text chat, Dane, as I was reading out, perhaps we had an error with the points there, so we'll revisit that in just a moment, perhaps in the middle of qualifying, so apologies for that.
Yeah, it looks like maybe last week's points before the third round of the season might have snuck in there. So we'll see what we can do about that as practice ticks over to an end. And it is still Rister up at the top, so Pro Silver leading the field. We'll see if he can manage to do that again in qualifying as the drivers launch onto the track, and instantly most of the field is going to try and get out as soon as possible, give themselves the most time possible to get out into some clear air and get some good laps under their belts. It's definitely going to be crucial to get maybe not the draft so much as we saw last time out at Road America, where it was very draft heavy. The drivers that were getting a good distance away from other cars were really had a massive advantage. Here, maybe not so much. You got quite a technical first sector in the arena section. Personally, I don't enjoy that part of the circuit, but draft is not going to do anything for you there. It will just create dirty air. Then you've got another sweeping section of corners here, the left and the right at turns 5 and 6, and then down into the hairpin. And then after the hairpin is when you get the first real straight part of the circuit, and then another one up to the chicane at the end of the lap. So the final sector is pretty straight line intensive, but in the first and second sectors, Lee, maybe it might not be very beneficial at all to be right behind somebody.
No, it's going to be tricky. I think the guys are going to want to try and find their space, aren't they? It's like I say, it's that balance between do you capture the draft or do you not? But I think really you want to try and find your bit of clear space. Maybe you'll be lucky at the end and get a little bit of toe to the finish line, and that's probably going to be your best bet, unless of course you're working in tandem with a teammate and you can organise things a little bit better. But I'd say 33 cars out on track. They've got a decent amount of time, 20-minute session, so we'll see who can find that space out there.
The drivers are going to be coming towards the line to start their first flying laps now, so we'll really get a chance to see who's going to get right up to the top on the first time of asking. It looks like Tom Daswell might be the first person out on the circuit in his Porsche 911 GT3R as he crosses the line to start his first flying lap. We'll see what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, Tom Dadswell been dominant so far this season. They were scraping just under the 1 minute 55s in practice for their quickest time, so we'll have to see what they have here as well, and we'll go from there. We should be able to get those championship points clarified soon. Just a little bit of fiddling in the background just to make sure we've got that all sorted, and then we'll confirm those shortly.
The drivers seem to be leaving pretty big gaps between themselves. I think they know that following someone closely through this part of the circuit is definitely not going to be helping them. And yeah, quite big gaps being left by all of the drivers. I don't see too many drivers out on track close to each other much at all. Pretty much a second gap or more being left between almost every single driver out on track at the moment. This is Dave Erden, was at the top of Pro Bronze standings up in 6th overall through practice, as you remember. The Swiss driver looking to try and keep that consistency going and get onto Pro Bronze pole at least in this qualifying session. They're around about halfway through their first flying laps at the moment. We'll see when Tom Dadswell gets across the line what his lap time is going to be looking like. He's nearing the end of his lap at the moment. Only a few meters, a few hundred meters, I should say, left in his lap. And Scott Rister pretty close to the line as well. So we'll see when they cross the line. Are they going to get close to their practice times?
Well, we've not got long to find out. We'll see if that's the case or not. Already straight down into the low 55, so Scott Rister pretty close, but Kataya already putting in a time quicker than what he managed in practice sessions. So I dare say that bit of draft, that bit of toe that you were talking about, Dane, helped out Kataya that time by. But like I say, we've got plenty of time to see how these guys improve through the session, and whether Rister can take that top spot again. Right, so just whilst we have a moment and say the guys are completing their opening laps, let's not forget to thank our sponsor of the series, Acertech Sim Sports. Acertech Sim Sports, Invicta pedals offer the competitive gamer and racing enthusiast who want an immersive sim racing experience. Invicta pedals have a hydraulic brake cylinder and a proper clutch point, and differentiates themselves from other manufacturers by having a true life feel and intuitive setup, all to give you the best and most realistic experience of driving on a real circuit. You can find out more about them at azertech.com/simsports. This Finding Speed League is also brought to you by Apex Racing Academy. They bring you 29 data packs, one-to-one coaching and group coaching with some of the quickest guys out there on iRacing from Apex Racing Team. The data packs you can have automatically syncing through your sync app, so you don't even have to worry about going and chasing sets. You just jump in the session, go into the garage, load your set, and they're there straight away. So you can find out more about them at apexracingac.com. Okay, so we've got on top of those championship points, so we've got a bit of time at the beginning of qualifying just to skim through those again. So let's start all this again and have a quick look at the Pro Gold. You can see that Tom Dadswell is still in that top spot with Gataya in second. A little bit more of a gap between them than what we saw a moment ago. So yeah, sort of 15 points or so. Jensen Edginson's then in third, Stephen Broomfield fourth, and Billy Fletcher in fifth. So really kind of the battle there looks to be mostly between sort of second, third and fourth, doesn't it? All right, so Pro Silver class up next. And for the Pro Silvers, actually, it's Stin Van Neeren that's jumped ahead now of Dara Adrianson from last week. So just a 1 point gap between first and second. Anthony Beck then tied in third place on 99 points with Dara. Jekko Oddboschoff then in fourth with Patrick Gannon in fifth. Juan Manuel in sixth with Phil Reagan in seventh. Dan Mori in eighth. Ollie Morgan ninth. And Tom Brown in 10th. And then if we have a quick look at the Pro Bronze as well, when we looked at those a minute ago, the top three were all tied, but we can see that now Timothy Bray, after his week last time out, has actually got a 4 point gap over Alex Peck, with Angel Pedrero then in third, tied on points again. Kosh Kelly just another point further back. Luke Davis in fifth, Ed Knight in sixth, Matt Knudsen in seventh, Robert Odoms in eighth, Wallace Espada in ninth, and Darren Doherty in 10th. So Dave Erdin, incidentally, is quite far down in those Pro Bronze standings, but he's actually been looking pretty strong in the bronze class the last couple of rounds, so we'll see how he progresses. And then in the championship standings, Indy Autosport have still got that top spot, but they've got a bit more breathing space over Race Gear in the team's championship. Altitude Esports then in third, Ignium Motorsport and Ignium Motorsport Spark still taking up the fourth and fifth position. So those are our up-to-date points, so sorry for the confusion at the start there. And like I say, just with one final round after this in a championship, Dane, then like I say, it's all getting to crunch time, as you mentioned earlier on. How have you been looking in qualifying as I've been catching us up on this?
Well, I think Dadswell invalidated his first lap time. Most likely that was through the first arena section. The off-tracks there are very close to the edge of the circuit. So yeah, no lap time so far for Dadswell. He's coming around through to the final sector of the circuit now, but it's Kataya still up in front. Only around 2/10 or so ahead of Gannon in the silver class, who is ahead of Rister. So Rister also very close up there. The gap between those two drivers only 9,000ths of a second in the Pro Silver category. But Dadswell now around the final corner. We'll see what type of time he can set. Looking pretty quick through the final corner. Probably going to be able to set a lap time this time by. Not going to invalidate that one across the line. What sort of time can he do? It's only good enough for third in Pro Gold and only good enough to fifth overall. It's a 155.269.
Yeah, interesting. We just haven't seen this from Dadswell rest of the season. Pretty much from the off, he's put it at the front and stayed there the whole time by, but no such luck this round. Scott Rister just improving his lap. He scrapes under the 55, so only the second car to do it. So yeah, he is first in Pro Silver class, second overall. In practice day, we did see that it looked like the Porsches were kind of pretty strong. I think we had like 5 of the top 8 cars were Porsches. Oh, and a little spin there for Rister, I think, was it? Yeah, it was. We're seeing Porsches kind of in, you know, a decent amount of them in the top 10 so far here at the start of qualifying, but only one of them in the top 4.
You can see now the cars being used by all the drivers on the timing tower, and quite a few Porsches. I would say a majority of BMWs out there. It's one of the most commonly used cars. Also the most commonly used car in the official series as well. It's ease to drive, I think, is why it's so popular. It's not going to snap out at you randomly through corners as maybe the Porsche might, and certainly the Audi and the Lamborghini as well might do with their format. The only McLaren on the grid is Stephen Brumfield, still out there in that car. Rumours actually of a new McLaren GT3, the 720 GT3 coming to iRacing in the next build. Still very much rumours. I've heard a couple of people talking about that though, so maybe this pretty outdated McLaren GT3, the MB412C, might not be on the roster for too much longer. It's qualifying now halfway through, and it's still Kataya up at the top.
It'll definitely be great to see a new McLaren come onto the service, won't it? Like you say, that existing GT3 is you know, been around for a fair amount of time now on the service. Like I say, it does maybe feel a little bit dated. Certainly isn't a popular car. It's not the go-to car in the class. And so yeah, great if that strong relationship between McLaren and iRacing does continue, and we get that added to the service. Hopefully we might get more from them in the future with the different activities that McLaren have got going on. All right, let's have a quick look at how sort of the top 10 positions or so are looking at the minute in qualifying. So Kataya still got this 1/10 gap over Scott Rister, but looking very comfortable in his lead in the gold class at the minute, because Patrick Gannon then is the next car up after Rister, also in the Pro Silver class. Jensen Edginson then is the first of the Pro Gold, so that's a good 3.5 tenths off of Kataya. Tom Dadswell then in fifth overall with Mika Makavara in 6th, Alan Carraget 7th, Anthony Beck 8th, Unmal Kalaya in 9th, and Luke Davis 10th. So Luke currently the top of those Pro Bronze runners. So yeah, kind of really interesting, Dane, that we've got these 2 Pro Silver cars of Rister and Gannon, who we have seen, you know, pretty strong kind of last time out. They were running at the top of Silver. Yeah, sitting currently ahead of 2nd, 3rd, 4th in Pro Gold.
Obviously not the easiest circuit that they visited this season so far. None of the circuits have been particularly easy for the drivers, I don't think. Starting off at Road Atlantic, of course, not the easiest circuit with the S's at the beginning of that very tricky section of circuit there. Nurburgring, no different. Very tricky first sector. That arena section is quite awkward. Lots of very long, slow corners that really can chew up the tyres if you're not careful. So tyre management might be a wise move for some of the drivers in this race as it gets to the dying stages of the race. You want to have a little bit of grip left in the tyres before the checkered flag flies. But yeah, I think the drivers will have to watch out for that heading into this race. And we're now watching the one of the sole Audis. I think there might be a second Audi. I think he might be the only Audi though of Gannon. Currently in 3rd overall in Pro Silver, coming towards the end of a flying lap for him.
Yeah, like I say, we'll see how Gannon does. We can see from the colour charts at the bottom showing the sector times that he had a personal best in the 1st sector, then a fastest overall in the 2nd, but then didn't even get PBs in the 3rd or 4th. And we can see that black line ticking away as he comes to the end of the 5th sector at the start-finish line, and he bails out just as he gets there because he knows it wasn't good enough, 4/10 off that time by. So yeah, so we can keep an eye on the progress of each of the drivers out there, looking for those purple sectors. We can see Scott Rister got a purple first sector, but again, not improving then second, third and fourth. We'll see if he can make anything of that in the final sector, as Gray has a hard hit into the wall. That's going to affect a couple of cars behind as well. So unfortunate there for Yuvasea, who had to take avoiding action, and that was his qualifying lap ruined. Yeah, I was just going to say a moment ago, Dane, Nurburgring I kind of like as a circuit to kind of what the GP layout that is, to like watch racing, and I think it provides some good action. I've never been a massive fan of driving it, you know. I mean, how do you feel? Like sector 1 is kind of interesting with the real significant kind of drop into turn 1, be it off camber, and then kind of the sort of the medium speed corners working through to the hairpin at the end. But otherwise then it's just kind of the Mickey Mouse chicane at the end, a couple of kind of flat sort of corners towards the back end of the circuit as well. Never a huge fan myself for driving. What about you?
Yeah, no, me neither. I've not had the best of luck racing here either. In a lot of different series, never had success at Nurburgring, except for one iGPS race in my first month of being on the service, and it was because I was the only person out on the track. I didn't understand how races went official. I was like, oh, this is free iRacing and safety rating. No, it was not. I was the only person out of the 3 drivers that signed up to actually race. It's the only time I've won a race at the Nurburgring. It's not. I've not had the best of luck here, and not a circuit that I enjoy driving. The Nordschleife, fantastic favorite circuit on the sim, easily. No, not the GP circuit. It's the arena section really ruins it for me, actually. Like the first part of the circuit, the layout that skips the arena circuit, I'll happily drive for a bit, but that first sector is it's not great for me.
No, I think Kataya up there is finding it pretty great. He's just improved by another 10th over his already provisional pole position that he had. So he's got almost 2 tenths now over Rista. So he's feeling pretty happy with things, as Gannon was looking to put in a quicker time, I thought, but didn't quite improve that time by. Tom Dadswell still not really able to make any progress forward himself. So he's still, 4 tenths off now, off of Kataya's time. It's really not what we've seen so far in the rest of the season from Dadswell. So it'll be interesting to find out at the end of the race, kind of, is it a car thing? Is it just he's like, we were talk about maybe not so much of a fan of the track? Has he just not had the time to prepare like he has in previous weeks? It will be interesting to find out. Of course, the qualifying result isn't going to dictate the race result anyway, so it'll be interesting to see how he progresses then. But yeah, really unexpected, because he's been just dominant all season long.
I think his race pace will make up for it, though. We've seen throughout the season, the qualifying usually has been pretty close between himself and the rest of the field. There haven't really been many massive gaps in qualifying at the end of things, but usually in the race he'll just pull away right from the beginning. So if he's starting down in 5th place overall, then you might find it a bit more difficult to, of course, pull away from the guys behind, because you have to contend with those drivers in front that maybe in a race scenario he might just be a little bit quicker. We don't know if what his ratio is like. For me, I'm basically the same pace in qualifying and racing, so my qualifying pace compared to other people's qualifying pace is usually atrocious, but in the race I'll usually catch up a little bit. I wonder if it might be the same with Dadswell, and he might be able to make up some moves. He's not too far off Kataya, but it's enough that it's giving us some caution signs. He's taking a pretty wide line through the final corner, so I think he's starting a flying lap here. That final lap for him didn't seem particularly great. No purple sectors on that occasion, and yeah, it was 4 tenths off, so he's going to be starting a new flying lap heading down towards turn 1.
Yeah, and like I said, let's have an onboard lap with Dadswell then, like I say, dropping down into turn 1. It's really weird, kind of apex as the track falls away right on that inside curb. Then into turn 2, pretty tricky, kind of balancing the throttle. It kind of corner goes on for quite a while. You can use a fair amount of that exit curb, and Astro on the right. Then we've got this kind of left-right switchback, and kind of a really weird exit as well, where you can, Dadswell getting caught up with the slower car there, where you can really use all that track on the outside from the different configuration. But yeah, this time I won't get to see how Dadwell was able to complete that lap, because yeah, absolutely scuppered on his lap, and you can see how pleased perhaps he is about that. Let's say he's got a long race ahead of him, 45 minutes to go. But yeah, that was a glimpse of Sector 1 at Nurburgring. Whilst we've been focusing on events at the very front a little bit, I think, unless Dane mentioned it and I missed it, I think we missed that Timothy Bray has jumped to the top of Pro Bronze. I'm pretty sure I saw kind of Luke Davis there last time we checked in, with Cole Gray right behind him. So yeah, good job from them too. 8th, 9th overall, first and second in the Pro Bronze class. Not much more than sort of half a second off pole. So yeah, 0.7, something like that. So get it from those two. We'll see if they remain strong in the race as well.
Yep, up in the top 10 of things for the couple of the Pro Bronze drivers there, and I think both get pushed down a bit as Beck crosses the line up into 4th in Pro Silver, 8th overall, but Bray and Gray still in the top 10 in that overall standings. We are right at the end of qualifying, so drivers are, if they're on their final lap, then they will be able to finish it if things go the same way that they've done for the rest of the season. But as I mentioned last week, in Road America, very inconsistent iRacing is with timings of that nature. Across the 20-minute mark, the checkered flag is out. We'll see if the drivers get kicked off the circuit, or if they're going to be able to finish their lap times. It looks like they're actually going to get to finish them, which is good. So any drivers currently on a fast lap will be able to come across the line and finish. Do we have any drivers that are coming towards the line that might be improving, is the question. I'm seeing a whole lot of yellow on the sectors.
Yeah, like I say, a couple of random blue, couple of random green sectors, but no, like I say, looks like nothing really happening at the minute. Actually, most cars have already towed back to pits. Just got 4 cars remaining on track, with 4 that you can see at the bottom of the screen there. So we'll keep an eye maybe on Edrinson's, but yeah, looks like nothing really improving for now. So we'll just wait for this time to tick away, and then we can always. Dara of the Adrianson's brothers has a big spin on the exit of the chicane there, clipping the inside curb initially, I think. Yeah, we'll be able to confirm the grid positions in a moment once the qualifying is locked in. But yeah, seems to be a nice little mix-up there, I think, Dane, through that session. Just as we kind of saw in practice, we were wondering whether it was going to shuffle itself out a little bit more, but no, the top 2 silvers mixing it in with the golds, the top 2 bronze mixing it in with the silvers. So so that's nice to see from those guys kind of punching above their weight, just like above their weight slightly.
Yep, it is definitely great to see that, and it will provide for some interesting battles. As we've alluded to, the points are based on what class you're in, not what position overall that you are in. So when you're fighting as a Pro Bronze driver up against a Pro Silver driver, then you're not actually fighting for points. It's just the track position that you're fighting for. So a lot of the drivers are in a bit of a tricky situation where they're sort of in the middle of, do I want to stop fighting and let the faster cars through and just save time, or do I want to get cars between me and the next car in my class behind me? So it is an interesting predicament that the drivers will face many times throughout the race, because we do have a lot of drivers, I would say, out of position. They're not out of position, they've earned their space on the grid, but yeah, they are definitely not where they should be according to their class. So it could cause a few issues maybe during the race, especially if some drivers didn't have the best qualifying. They're going to have to work through a lot of cars. We've got quite a few cars on the grid here at Nurburgring.
Yeah, and I mean, it's that tricky Sector 1, isn't it, for them as well? So they've got, you know, quite a bit of time from the actual start-finish line, because it's pretty early on the straight, right? So the guys hopefully will have time just to kind of get themselves in order a little bit. Then it's going to be that tricky braking down into turn 1, hard, slow hairpin, and yeah, let's hope the majority, if not all the cars, can get through cleanly and start putting together their laps. Like I say, it's a 45-minute race. It's not some little 10-minute, 15-minute sprint. So hopefully the guys can get the job done out there. Right. So the guys out on track are going to start gridding up momentarily. It gives us an opportunity just to confirm the grid. We're going to have a very short pace lap here though, because the safety car starts just before the final chicane. So we can see that Yusa Kataya did take the overall pole position and pole for Pro Gold with a 154.796, almost 2 tenths quicker than the Pro Silver leader of Scott Rister in second, then Patrick Gannon in third, with Jensen's Adriansons in fourth. Tom Dad's World Championship leader for Pro Gold, currently fifth on the grid, with Malcavara in sixth. Alan Carraget in seventh, with Anthony Beck in eighth. Then we've got the first of our Pro Bronze runners. So that Pro Bronze pole went to Timothy Bray, with Cole Gray just lining up alongside him. Then Steven Van Nieuwen in 11th, with Juan Kaya in 12th. 13th then was Luke Davis, Dara Agenstons in 14th. Dave Erdin in 15th, with Christian Volkner in 16th. Dominicus Yevasea in 17th, with Stephen Broomfield in 18th. Jacob Boshoff in 19th. Ed Knight 20th. Kosh Kelly in 21st, with Richard Jones in 22nd. Darren Doherty in 23rd, with Phil Regan in 24th. 25th then was Angel Pedrero, with Matt Knudsen in 26th. Colin McKenzie in 27th, with Alex Peck in 28th. Kansas Gentry 29th. Dan Ocaranza in 30th. David Villarano in 31st. Ollie Morgan 32nd. Braden Coates in 33rd. Carlos Espada 34th. And Steve Brown in 35th. We'll see if the last four cars do actually take to the grid, because they didn't put a qualifying time in. It looks like all but one have so far, so perhaps they just have sort of qualifying bans, but good to see that they will be out on track competing in the race. So Dane, how do you see this shaping up? Kataya and Rister on that front row, we can see sat behind the safety car. Who's going to come out of turn one?
Oh, that's a good question. I think Kataya might have this one. It is a fairly long run from the green flag down in towards the braking zone at turn number one there. So it's definitely going to be an interesting race start. We've got a lot of cars going through there. There is a definite areas where we could see a little bit of carnage. They've kept it clean throughout the entire season so far. On the opening few laps, we've not had many huge wrecks. At the beginning of races, we had that one at Hungaroring right at the beginning before they even reached the start-finish line. It was coming around the final corner. Similar situation here at Nurburgring. You've got the final corner almost identical. It's a pretty long hairpin-like corner, and the green flag is going to come out very close to that corner. So hopefully we don't get any carnage, but they're about to go on underway.
Yeah, let's see how early Kataya goes. He goes straight out the corner, in fact, Dane. So green and green, they're off and away. Kataya's got the jump. Rister slotting in behind. Adrianson and Gannon side by side. So Adrianson's already gained a spot over Gannon, and Dadswell dropping back a spot to Malcavara. So they're going to be challenging into turn one. Who's latest on the brakes? Dadswell goes fairly deep in the background. Clean up ahead, it looks like. First half a dozen cars getting through pretty cleanly. Seems like a good start, Dane. I do see a bit of movement in the timing screen though. Volkner going backwards, there he is, I think stationary. And Yevasea as well. Problem for Anthony Beck as well, now falling down the order. So he's got tangled up in turn 2 or turn 3, I think. At the very, very front though, Kataya still in lead, but Edginson's jumped up into second. Scott Rister relegated to third, with Gannon in fourth, who we've got on screen right now. Can that Audi driver get round the outside of the Ferrari there? Not quite this time. Dadswell dropped another spot, Dane, whilst we were looking away. So he's lost a spot to Carragher, so he is now 7th overall, 4th in class in Pro Gold. Unseen so far this season from Dadswell.
Probably just trying to keep it safe in at the starts in Nurburgring, but everybody seemed to get through fairly cleanly up at the front. But it was in the middle of the pack where we saw a couple drivers getting turned around. I don't think we had too many drivers having to tow back to the pits, which is good to see. A lot of drivers still making it through cleanly. So most of the drivers still out on the circuit as they make their way through the final sector now. Still side by side here. This is the driver in second place in Pro Bronze. It's Carl Gray, and he is just trying to hold on to a couple of positions here. He's in a pretty big fight here. There's Brookfield up the inside in the McLaren just behind it. A BMW is going to go for it as well. They're still side by side through the chicane, and positions still swapping as if it's turn number 1. Oh, and there we go. Someone spun around at the chicane and gets out of the way very quickly, which is lucky because that's a massive choke point in the circuit.
Yeah, it definitely was. Jensen Edgerton straight into the pit, so we'll see what happened there. He's pitted before his, actually towed before his pit box as well, so problems then for Edgerton. He's disconnected from the from the track for now. We'll see if he returns in a little bit. But yeah, like I say, unfortunate carnage there at the final chicane as Rista trying to come back here at Kataya. And of course, Edginson's, of course, I said a second ago, was second overall. So we'll have to try and catch what his problem was and why he towed back to pits. But sorry, it's Gannon and Rista, not Kataya and Rista battling. And yeah, Gannon trying to come around the outside and does do cuts in front of Rista, takes that first place in the Pro Silver class. And you just see with these, half dozen cars, yeah, 6 it is squabbling away. That's just allowed Kataya to disappear, which is here obviously what surprised me. I thought it was P1 and P2 battling, but no, P1 is gone already. And yeah, Gannon and Arista leading this little train of cars.
Yep, out into the distance goes Kataya. That's not going to be a happy sight for Dadswell. He's got to try and make up some positions now. Sitting down in 6th overall. But 3rd in that Pro Gold class, which is what matters, 4 points. And he's going to get up position here, up the inside in the right-hander. Very nicely held on the outside for the Swiss driver alongside, but they're still side by side. Dadswell will have the inside here, might be able to poke a nose in front as they make their way up to the chicane. Looks like he might have backed out. He has backed out of that one, so will keep himself in that 6th position overall. Crucially, has lost a bit of time to Makavara in front, who is the next car that he's battling with. 4 points in the championship.
Really impressed so far with Timothy Bray. You know, he's right on the back of Dadswell at the minute, you know, mixing it with this front group. So, yes, he's really punching above his weight in that Pro Bronze class, and we know he's at the top of the standings in that class, so he needs to continue that and cement his position at the front. So now we've had a couple of laps down. Let's just have a quick skim through the top 10. Yusa Kataya, yeah, leading by 3 seconds. It is now over Patrick Gannon in 2nd, Scott Rista in 3rd, who we saw battling away a moment ago. Mika Makavara then in 4th with Alan Carraget in 5th. Tom Dadswell on screen in 6th. Tim Bray 7th. Stin Van Neeren in 8th, so he's gained 3 spots since his starting position. Lara Edginson has gained 5, and then Stephen Broomfield 10th overall, gaining 8 spots from his starting position. So yeah, plenty of movement there at the front for sort of 8th, 9th, 10th position. They've all moved a significant number of spots forward since the start. So we're not really sure what happened to Jensen. It's going to be interesting to see if we can try and find that out maybe a little bit later on, but we don't see any kind of instance involving Jensen really that's flagged up on our event system. So kind of a bit of a strange one there, Dane. Like I say, he jumped to the front early on. Looked like he could have been challenging Kataya early on.
Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one. Was up in 2nd, of course, overall. So in a very nice position. No contact with anybody, I don't think. No spins, no damage, causing opportunities on the first lap for him. Might have hit, actually, now that I think of it. He might have slammed himself into one of those curbs at the chicane, but I think these GT3 cars are high up enough off the ground, unlike most of the single-seaters on the service, that taking those curbs isn't going to cause any damage. But yeah, pulled into the pits, towed before his pit box, and out of the session. So not sure what's happened there. You'd think if it was damage, it would be fast repair and off you go. But no, straight out of the session. So maybe something outside of iRacing that's happened there, as Dadswell is slow and dropping down the field. What has happened here? Maybe a slowdown from the chicane. I don't see any damage to the car, so that's what I'm thinking at the moment.
Yeah, that seems like a good call. So yeah, he's lost what, 2 or 3 further spots. So yeah, really a tough day out there at the minute for Dadswell. I mean, you know, he's looking pretty strong in the championship. He just needs to, you know, finish and bag some points, I guess, to kind of continue forward to Suzuka. But it's certainly going to be putting him under a lot more pressure than in Suzuka for that final round in 2 weeks' time. So yeah, interesting. Still looking fairly dominant for the Porsches in general. We've got 3 Porsches in the top 5 overall. But yeah, one of the 2 Audis in the whole session running second and leading Pro Silver. So great to see Gannon able to take advantage of the Audi, and Dadswell blinking away on the screen, having internet connections, and spins the car. What is going on with Tom Dadswell today? Real problems there for him at in the UK. and yeah, just really not his day. I mean, it's not actually affected his position in class so far, Dane. So actually his points that he's going to get for the championship won't have changed there before and after his spin, but still he's having a tough day out there.
Yeah, and a bigger problem really is that to get more points now from today's race, he's got to get past Broomfield, who is quite a far distance up the road, and he's got a lot of Pro Silver and Pro Bronze drivers between himself and the Soul McLaren in the field, and now he's being held up now by two drivers going side by side through the chicane. It's not really because they're driving slowly, it's you have to drive super slowly to make it too wide through that chicane. So getting held up through there, nowhere that he could go, and yeah, probably adding a little bit more frustration to what's already not being the best lap of the Nurburgring for Tom Dadswa, that's for sure. And in the 101 now, trying to move up the inside towards turn number 1. Now the outside for turn 2 gets the move done very nicely indeed, and now just has one Porsche in front of him of I believe it's Erdin, before he can get going and try and close down the gap to the cars in front, which is quite a big one. He's got a lot of space between himself and the next point scoring car.
No, for sure it's going to be, we'll keep an eye on him through the rest of the race, see how he progresses. Lots of little battles going on throughout the field though. Our timing tower is mostly orange and yellow, that we like to see everyone within a second or half a second of each other. Here's a nice little train of cars towards the back end of the top 10. We got up to what, Pajero, Doherty, Peck, Boschoff, Morgan and Knudsen all in that little battle between silver and bronze, all following each other in that little grouping. We can see the field spread rather is starting to come in a little bit into play. We've got a few different little groups that we can see in that track map. Kataya out on his own as we saw, and it's what, second to fifth, then have a little group, then like 6th to 8th a little group, and then kind of more from there. So we've got these little kind of groupings of like 4, 5, 6 cars each, yeah, all in their own little individual trains. We'll see if any can sort of pull themselves towards the next one, or if any fall back, and just how the strategies and battles are going to develop as we start getting towards pit windows not very long as well.
Yeah, and around about 5 minutes or so, I reckon we'll be having the early stoppers. We haven't seen too many of those so far in the series. Most of the drivers choosing to run the tank fairly dry until they decide to head down and pick up a little bit of fuel to make it to the end of the race. It's obviously the easier strategy because you can tell pretty quickly when you're running out of fuel how much fuel you're going to need to make it to the end, whereas if you try and fill up with half an hour left for the final 15 minutes, it can be a little bit more difficult to work out how much you're actually going to need. And so under-fueling or over-fueling, both of which are not ideal, much more common when you try that strategy. But yeah, pit window that we normally see in this series around about the half an hour mark, when the fuel runs out, as this is a huge group of cars all very close to each other, going side by side out of the first sector now in towards the hairpin on the circuit, side by side, and almost making it single file, but not quite, as we've got two drivers side by side now heading towards the hairpin, just about making a single file before the braking turn.
That did look like quite a squabble going on there, didn't it? As It has a spin from midway down the teen positions, and he's going to find himself right in this group that we were just watching a second ago. So now is K.A. that's leading the group, followed by Pajero, Doherty, Boschoff, Peck, Morgan and Knudsen. So all of a sudden that's had an extra car added, and a move going on here down the inside between Boschoff and Doherty it was, but Boschoff just backed out in the end. But I think Morgan there having a little look at Peck as well, just behind, but again he can't quite get that move done this time by. So we've now got two teammates at the front of this little group as well, for Kaya and Pedrero for the Nitro Racing team. So we'll see if they can try and work together a little bit, maybe try and pull away from this absolute kind of madness that's happening in that little group there. But at the minute it looks like Kaya's just gapping Pedrero, and Pedrero's going to be defending hard into turn 1, I suspect. Misses the apex completely as well there, Dane. So Pedrero really struggling. Got Doherty all over the back of him now, and yeah, Pedrero goes straight to the inside as he needs to, defending hard.
Slamming the door shut up against the pit wall now, seeing can he hold on to it down the inside in towards turn 1. The cutback could be on for the 21 Ferrari on the outside. No, and actually up the inside, now to the outside, it goes Boschoff in the Lamborghini all the way around the outside at turn 2. Can't quite make that one work. Also going for the switchback and now sends it up the inside almost in towards turn 3, but backs out of that one. That was into the vortex of danger, as the SCC regulations say. And yeah, that gap was always closing. No room was going to be given there, so good job to back out of that one. But this looks like it might end up pretty interestingly, as we've got a lot of drivers that are all very eager to race one another.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I can see this being our focus for the next little while for sure. So it was interesting how, you know, into turn 1 there, Doherty suddenly went for, you know, from making a move on P1, overshooting the corner just ever so slightly, and all of a sudden having to defend hard then from the position behind. So it can very quickly change that way, as Volkner has a little dive up the inside of Knudsen, but nothing happening. And exactly as I said, you go for a move and all of a sudden you can't pull it off. You're the one that gets overtaken. Yeah, Volkner gets done over by Beck, and Beck makes another spot straight away as well on Knudsen. Volkner tries to follow through, so Knudsen now being the one gets hung out to drive and lost another position in the background as well. What is going on? What is going on, Dane? Would you say? You see moves happening left, right and centre, people coming back at each other. Yeah, Knudsen kind of gaining a spot and losing 3 in the space of 2 corners.
Yeah, usually the drivers don't want to race each other this early into the race. They sort of wait until the last 5-10 minutes or so before they actually start going for moves, because usually what happens is you battle at the opening start parts of the race and all you're doing is losing time. But not today. The drivers are going at it, which is it's great to see. It makes it certainly a lot more interesting for us to watch up in the comms booth, that's for sure, as Steen Van Nielen in the 222 Ignia Motorsport Lamborghini trying to make some kind of move on Dara Adriansons, and up a little bit further it's Scott Rister defending from Malcolm Vara, the Pro Silver, ahead of the Pro Gold driver. Lost Gannon out in front of the Pro Silver category, and he's trying to catch up to Kataya, and gaps between those drivers, and that is the gap between the drivers in their own classes. So that is why you're seeing Gannon without a gap to the leader. It's because he is his class leader. So 1.7 seconds is the gap between Rister and Gannon, slowly extending that gap as well as Gannon. So the Audi treating him nicely around here so far.
No, definitely, like I say, he's wheeling that round pretty consistently and very, very quickly as well. So interestingly, so earlier on, Kataya was really, say, pulling away from Gannon and Rister second and third, but not really so much anymore. We can see the cars in the background there, so he's not really managed to continue that on, and Gannon's been reeling him back in. Reeland's last lap, sorry, start that again. Gannon's last lap, sorry, was half a second quicker than Kataya, and all of a sudden I look away and another second has gone. Dane, what has happened? Has Kataya got damaged? Like, I can't see anything immediately, but all of a sudden Gannon's half a second behind, challenging for the overall lead.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening here at all. I don't see any damage, but of course with the pretty big curves at the chicane, always invisible damage is definitely a possibility. If there was damage to his car that's causing him to have this disadvantage, you'd expect Kataya might want to pit. Then again, that would probably put him into a massive field of cars behind, so it also might not want him to make him want to pit this early into the race. But yeah, I'm not too sure what's happened. Maybe just thinking, well, my main championship contender is in 4th position in class, pretty far down the field, not likely at all to catch up to me, and the drivers behind me, directly behind me, are not fighting with me for points. I might as well just relax a bit and try not to make mistakes rather than try and go flat out. That could be an option, but yeah, it's very odd that Gannon has caught right up to the back of Kataya, especially considering the gap that Kataya was able to pull at the start of the race.
Yeah, like I say, I think as you said, he must have some kind of damage. I mean, say curb strikes certainly can be an issue at the chicane. If that's the case, that's super unfortunate, and we wonder if it was maybe a similar problem for Jensen Edgenson's earlier on as well. Who knows? But yeah, Kataya under a lot of pressure from Gannon if these guys do start squabbling, and of course that's going to allow Rister just a second and a half further back. We can see in the background there in the silver Ferrari, to pull himself to this battle as well, and all of a sudden make it a 3-car train, and Malcavara in 4th will try and do the same. So we definitely need to keep a close eye on this battle at the front, as Gannon completely underneath the rear wing of Kataya there through the final corner. Let's see what kind of drive they get off of the corner. Can Gannon get pulled up in that draft and up and alongside into turn 1? Doesn't look like he's got a leg, so I'm not really seeing like damage for Kataya in terms of top speed. Dane, I mean, it looked fine, and Gannon had the draft as well.
Yeah, so not damaged then maybe for him, but still very odd that he would let Gannon close the gap like that. Maybe Gannon's found some pace after getting out of the battle between himself and second in Pro Silver. Rista just behind. We'll have to wait and see really if Kataya continues to drop back, or if he can maintain the lead of the race. So Gannon very close behind in second, and Rista looking at the gap between them and Rista, because if Gannon's getting held up by Kataya, the gap between them and Rista would decrease. So that might be an indication, but it did look like Gannon couldn't get past Kataya.
No, it did, like I say, for sure. I mean, yeah, Kataya just doesn't seem to quite have the pace at the minute. So last time by, he was the slowest of the top 5. So it doesn't necessarily look like just that Gannon is sort of lightning quick. Yeah, like Kataya just hasn't quite got the pace at the minute. And if he wants to challenge for the Pro Gold Championship, he's currently, you know, second in that class. He needs to take full advantage of Dadswell having this bad day. Currently 4th in class, as you said. So he needs to ensure that Malcavara in second, say just a couple of spots further back, second in Pro Gold class. We can see him in the back there in the red and black car as well. He needs to make sure that Malcavara doesn't get a sniff of pushing by and costing him some critical points.
Yeah, keeping ahead of Malcavara is definitely the priority for Kataya at the moment, as we near 20 minutes into the race, almost at the halfway distance, and drivers still battling it out on the circuit, especially in that midfield section where we've seen quite a lot of drivers very close together. Dadswell is trying to catch up to the drivers in front. Done a pretty good job actually of making his way through
Early pit stop.
Pro Bronze and Pro Silver drivers. Yeah, into the pits pretty early. The first scheduled pit stop, I would say, out of anyone near the front of the field. So this is certainly an interesting tactic just before half race distance, and he's decided that he's had enough of the traffic and he wants to try and get out of it.
That's exactly it, isn't it? I think he feels he should be running at the front. Really, we've seen it the rest of the season. So yeah, see if he can find himself some clear air and have another go. Knudsen and Mackenzie also just coming into pits just behind Steve Brown as well. So we'll kind of keep half an eye on where Knudsen comes out later on, because we know he was involved in that huge battle at the front. I'm seeing a gap just of 2.5 tenths as well between Kataya and Gannon briefly as they headed down through the hairpin at the bottom of the circuit. So that's really going to be one to keep an eye on. And Dadswell has found himself a nice bit of clean track. Dane, look at that. He's got a huge amount of space in front of him, a good couple of corners before he gets to the next, what looks like a Pro Bronze drive. Yes, it is Orkanza. And yeah, this is an opportunity now for, if Dadswell has got more pace in the car, him to try and put that in and see how far forward he can claw himself. But he's got a lot of work to do still.
Yep, and around about 10 minutes until the other drivers that were around him also go down into the pit lane. So he doesn't have 25 minutes to catch up the gap and try and gain positions on the drivers that were in front of him when he pitted. He's got around about 9 minutes. So it's a bit of a tricky situation for him, but yeah, like you said, loads of space out there for him. Going through turn 1, the next car was going through turn 4, so basically the entire arena section he's got before the next car. See how much of that he can try and make up over the next 5 laps or so, as drivers starting to make their way across the line up at the front to start lap number 12. And oh, that's a bit wide for the BMW of Phil Reagan. He's going to get passed by Calleja. I thought he might have gone down to the pits, but no, chooses to stay out and go around the final one.
Yeah, like I say, yeah, Reagan having a little bit of a tough time that time by. Nobody else immediately coming into pits. Right as I say that, Angel Pedrero does indeed dive into the pits from his 7th position in the bronze class. And again, we'll kind of keep an eye on where he comes out in relation to Knudsen, because we know they were hard at it just a moment ago. But yeah, no no flood of other pit stops yet. It seems that we just have these couple of guys coming in early. It looks like the whole field now has just calmed down a little bit. Dane, our timing screen's gone kind of pretty much solid white now, as everyone's just having a little bit of a breather before they get to their pit stops, maybe working out yeah, again, how much fuel they need to take as nuts, and having an issue after on his outlap, that will be, won't it? So yeah, outbraking himself at the final chicane as well. That's not going to help him to come out in front of Pedrero, who's on pit exit as we speak, and we'll see, yeah, who gets a run. Pedrero looks like he's going to comfortably have that in hand over Knudsen, and yeah, there he goes. Knudsen still a few positions further back, so yeah, did not work out that time by for Knudsen. We're getting word, by the way, sorry Dane, we're getting word, by the way, in YouTube chat that Tom Dadswell had his wheelbase switch off earlier on, which could explain, I'm guessing, that that blinking and the spin we saw early on. So that potentially is the reason for his issues earlier on.
Could explain some of the somewhat pace issues that we were seeing in qualifying. Well, if he's been struggling with hardware issues throughout the event, maybe that could explain other things as well, but it would definitely explain that big old spin. It wasn't in a place where you'd expect a GT3 car to spin. It was off the exit of a corner, but traction control on these cars, you shouldn't really be able to just spin it around like that on the exit of a pretty slow corner. It's nice and banked as well, so yeah, definitely would explain that one. See if he can hopefully not have any more of those issues for the second half of the race, and try and move up through the field. His main target really is the Broomfield, currently third in that Pro Gold category. As a couple more drivers heading down into the pits. Kelly's in the pits now in Pro Bronze, and Kataya's keeping Gannon behind, but that gap is staying pretty stagnant at around 3-4 tenths of a second as they make their way into the hairpin for the 13th time. That could be an interesting battle in the pit lane, actually. I reckon if Kataya doesn't go to the pits and Gannon's got 2 laps to go, I think Gannon's going to pit first. I think he'll try and pit at a different point to Kataya. Maybe try and get past without a car in his way. And maybe try and alternate the pit strategy ever so slightly. That's 25 minutes into the race, 20 minutes to go. And we'll see what he can do. He definitely seems to have the pace to keep up with Kataya. I wonder if he's just got that little bit extra that will allow him to get past.
Yeah, like I say, we're going to have to keep an eye on C for sure. Like I say, the smart choice that certainly does seem to be try and take a pit at a different lap and use that opportunity to break away. He obviously feels like he's got the pace, but then equally you don't want to get caught in traffic like you talked about earlier on with Dadswell by going for an early stop. So great view off of the final corner from this nose cam on Gannon. Doesn't look like, again, he's really got the top speed to make the difference and make the move into turn 1, so he's going to have to try and find another way by. Right, so just whilst we wait for these real round of pit stops to kick off, let's just have a very, very short look at the advert from SDK Sim Sports, the series sponsor of Finding Speed League GT3. And so, yeah, thanks again to SDK Sim Sports for their title sponsorship of the series. Just to remind you, SDK Sim Sports Invicta pedals are for the competitive gamer and racing enthusiast who want an immersive sim racing experience. The Invicta pedals have a hydraulic brake cylinder, a proper clutch point, and differentiate from other manufacturers by having a true life feel and intuitive setup, all to give you the best and most realistic racing experience of driving on a real circuit. You can find out more about them at www.isotech.com/simsports. So thank you again to them. Gannon still pressuring hard the whole time on Kataya, this time by Dane, but like I say, he's just not really able to do anything about that sort of 2.5-3 tenth gap at all.
Is it that he can't get past, or is it that he's not trying to get past?
I mean,
it is a
different
tricky
lines
one.
of things, isn't he? He kind of feels like he's moving around. Is his best opportunity.
Maybe just trying to pressure into a mistake there. It looked like he was going to send it up the inside, but then of course didn't. Through the chicane. Looks like Rista. Is that Rista just behind that's caught right up here?
Yeah,
to this group of cars, so It could have a three-way battle for the leads. Bit of a gap behind to Malcavara as well, so Kataya will like to see that. A couple more drivers coming out of the pits now as well. I think I just saw a Lamborghini coming out of the pit exit. But Gannon might just be saving tyres, saving fuel as well. That actually could be crucial for Gannon whilst he's behind Kataya. Save the fuel, get a shorter pit stop, get in front for the final 10 minutes of the race. So lots of different things could be happening. It's one of the things that you just have to look out for when you've got these pit strategies. What is going through the mind of that Audi driver? We've got a bunch of different things that could be happening. Is it pace or is it saving resources? And that could be crucial heading into the pit stops. In possibly the next time by will be the final lap of this first stint for the drivers. It's definitely going to be interesting when they finally make their way down into the pit lane.
Yeah, for sure. As we can see, the rear brakes of Kataya glowing on the approach to the hairpin that time by getting them really working, as he's trying to keep that pace up still. He was a 10th quicker last time by than Gannon, but Rista was 3/4 tenths quicker in that third place. That's what's allowed him to claw his way up into this battle and make it that 3-car train that you said about a minute ago. Just a very quick check-in for Pro Bronze as well. So Timothy Bray still leading the Pro Bronze class in that 6th position overall, with a comfortable gap over Cole Gray then in 2nd Pro Bronze, 10th overall. There's a good sort of, where are we at? 6-7 seconds? Yeah, 7-second gap between Bray and Carl Gray in 2nd. So yeah, Timothy Bray doing a good job. 1/10 gap at the front. I'm seeing on a timing screen Kataya and Gannon. Kataya goes into pits, as does Rista. So right at the point where Gannon got right up on the rear wing of Kataya was when Kataya was the one to blink, jumped into pit lane. Really interesting that Rista's followed, but not Gannon. So can Gannon show his pace now and put in, if he's got the fuel for it, 1 or 2 more laps at half a second quicker, second quicker, or is Rista going to get kind of towed along by Kataya and come out in front? We'll have to wait and see. Timothy Bray from the Pro Bronze lead coming in as well, as does Cole Gray, Ed Knight, Manuel Calleja. So yeah, a few half dozen cars coming in this time by. And Kataya comes out just ahead of Rista still, so they line astern as they were. They've got a little bit of traffic. Rista stopped, Dane. Rista stopped in the background, and he's towed back to pit lane. What happened there? Maybe he didn't get fuel or something random like that. Like he kind of he got out of just to the entrance of the track and just stopped dead, and now he's left the session.
Out of the session. I think what's happened there is someone took tyres maybe and didn't take fuel.
That's my guess.
That's a really weird
fuel.
thing to happen. Yeah, no fuel. How has
Shocking.
that happened? This reminds me of last year's Daytona 24 Hours. I think with Williams Esports, one of the bigger teams in that race, pitted, took tyres, driver swap, and no fuel, came out the pits and just had to stop after what, 10 meters or so. That's insane. Why was he stopped for so long then? Was it tyres? It's odd that it was the same amount of time if it was tyres.
Exactly. It's really weird that he left his pit stall at exactly the same moment, right? So I mean, I can't imagine that it's just kind of by default the tyres take longer than the fuel, because I feel like we'd see a bit more mixture then of people maybe not taking 4 tyres or taking no tyres and trying to get out a bit quicker with the short fueling. So interesting. We'll have to try and dig around and see if we can find some more information there. But real shame for Rista. He was looking super strong all night long, quickest in practice. Gannon obviously we see in pit lane now, so we need to keep an eye on where he's going to come out in relation to Kataya. I was about to say before Rista stopped that it looked like Kataya was going to have a little bit of traffic on him in that outlap, so we'll have to just see how that pans out. Everybody now coming into pit lane, Dane, so this looks like to be the last lap that they can get on the fuel. There was Kataya just for a moment coming out the final corner. Here he is coming over the start finish line. Where is Gannon? Gannon's still coming out just now. Malcavara jumps Gannon. Gannon's still stationary. Problems for Gannon. Malcavara's the one that's jumped ahead. Dane, he's gone from what, 4th overall to 1st all of a sudden, and Gannon's just sat there stationary. Big problems. Two different cars at the front having huge issues in pit lane.
That's also a weird one. I've got no idea what's happening here. Maybe he forgot to change the fuel amount and iRacing has decided, yes, let's give him 120 litres of fuel for the final 15 minutes of the race. I honestly have no idea what could have happened. Now, finally, into the pit exit. Definitely not happy in that Audi for Gannon there. But yeah, like you said, Malkovara out in front. So Gannon almost certainly would have come out in first. So that's very sad for the American driver there.
So sensible suggestion from YouTube chat, Dane. What do you think? Speeding on the entry into pit lane? He'd get the immediate stop and hold in that pitch that he's about to do? That sounds like it makes sense to me.
Yeah, that does. It wasn't up on the jack, so it couldn't have been tyres. I thought maybe just over-fueled, but no. The penalty would have definitely made sense. Yeah, 30 seconds longer than everyone else being told, so... Right, well, looks like it definitely was a penalty then. Very unfortunate.
Big shout out then to Mark Fletcher Racing in YouTube chat for pointing us in the right direction there. Like I say, that for sure made a lot of sense. And it's understandable as well, because the pressure was on. We knew how tight it was between those top 3 spots for the overall positions there. And yeah, Arista unfortunately, Gannon unfortunately, obviously just pushing it that little bit too hard and paid the price as time by. So now we've got a race gear 1-2, both in the Porsche 911 GT3R. Malkovara is who's jumped ahead into the overall lead Pro Gold, and Kataya just behind by a second or so. So let's have a look at Gannon's entry. Does he have a big old jump on the brakes right at the line as he comes around his final corner? Here's the cones coming up, these 2 yellow cones. Yeah, we get a long way after those yellow cones. The speed was still coming down and then picked up as he was on the limiter, right? So seemed like it was fairly clear cut. Just overshot the speed at the yellow cones.
Yeah, massive mistake there from Gannon there. But now here's an interesting thought. 10 minutes to go. Malkovara in front, Kataya in second, fighting for the championship. Teammates. Are we going to see some level of team orders here to get Kataya the race win and a good point haul over Dadswell when they are fighting for the championship heading to the final round in 2 weeks' time?
I mean, that seems like the sensible thing, right? Like I say, Kataya is really in the hunt there at the front. Malkovara kind of really isn't. When are they going to look to do it? How obvious are they going to make it? You don't want to be kind of lifting at the finish line and letting your teammate by. You want to try and be a bit more kind of gamesmanship about it maybe. But yeah, at the minute, that certainly looks like the option that they need to take. They know that Dadswell's having a tough time. He's still 4th overall, but much closer now. Sorry, not 4th overall. Dadswell was 4th in the Pro Gold class, but much closer to 3rd now, Stephen Broomfield. Kataya, if he wants to a chance at winning the championship next time out at Suzuka, he's got to get maximum points, surely.
Yeah, it's the only logical solution for Kataya to try and challenge for that title heading into Suzuka. So it's a good points haul for the team as well in the team's championship. So I don't see any reason why they wouldn't swap around the drivers. But yeah, hopefully it's not quite the same situation as what we saw in DTM a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I think it's definitely the logical option for them at this stage in the race. 9 minutes left in the race, and taking a look at Timothy Bray out in front, the 339 car out in front of the Pro Bronze category. We've got a couple of Pro Golds and a Pro Silver driver of Jones in between himself and Gray in second in that Pro Bronze category. Dadswell catching up to Broomfield in that Pro Gold as well. So we'll see. It's quite a large gap, as you can see. There's a good few seconds in that one. But is he going to be able to catch that up in the remaining few laps of the race and try and snag a Pro Gold podium?
It's certainly what he's going to be trying hard to do, isn't it? As we see Ivasea battling hard there with Gannon, it is, of course, who's trying to recover from his issues earlier on. Banging doors, and Gannon touching the grass on the brakes as he gets hung out to dry there and manages to keep it on track, fortunately, and continues on, and we'll have another go anytime soon, I'm sure. So yeah, Gannon trying to recover his position. Currently 10th in class, 19th overall. Talking about 10th in class, it's whilst we've had all these changes at the front of the Pro Silver class, it's actually now Alan Carragher, who we saw on screen a couple of minutes ago, who's now leading the Pro Silver category. He actually done very well coming through the pit stops as well, because I'm pretty sure the next car up was Stin Van Neeën, who lost out there. So yeah, Dara Edginson's just behind, then Stin Van Neeën, like I say, third in that Pro Silver class. So yeah, things mixing up, and yeah, Carragher really getting the rewards there with the issues for the other drivers. Boshoff battling hard here, going into the final chicane with Phil Regan, and yeah, Boshoff in that Lamborghini getting the move done, looked pretty clean, and I think Regan's going to be under pressure pretty quick now from Beck just behind as well.
Again, trying to catch up to a couple of the Pro Bronze drivers, doing pretty well up there. The 1, 2, 3, 4, nice and up around that 10th position mark, with of course Bray in first in Pro Bronze and 6th overall, so doing a pretty good job on the Pro Bronze drivers. Oh, tiny bit of contact. Somehow they didn't end up spinning one another, as it looks like Beck trying to get past Regan now. Maybe try the inside line into turn 3. That was shut off very quickly. Oh, gets a bit of a tap from behind as Faulkner tries to get through as well. But somehow they didn't end up spinning each other. I'm not sure how that happened, because usually on iRacing, when you get into the side of a car right at the back, it's very easy to get that car turned the wrong way in an instant.
No, I'm sure they're both pretty fortunate there and shouldn't really have had any damage, of course, from it as well. So they should be all good. Whilst we've been away, Tom Dadswell has made that position now on Stephen Broomfield, so he's moved up into third in that Pro Gold class, and here he is on screen as we speak. So a reasonable recovery from Dadswell after his issues earlier on. And in fact, let's see what happened to Broomfield, because of course we know Dadswell was a few seconds back, so looks to have been an issue from Broomfield. And there we go, the McLaren's rear just letting go kind of mid-corner, kind of a bit of a strange point in the corner for it to suddenly kind of drift away from him, but fortunately a bit of runoff area, and yeah, Broomfield just loses that one spot and continues on.
Yeah, looks like maybe tyres might have given up with 6 minutes left or 5 minutes left in the race now, as once again side by side in towards the chicane, and ooh, Faulkner maybe a little bit too opportunistic there and gets taken by Gannon as well, so loses out on that 9th position in the Pro Silver category. And yeah, maybe just should have waited behind for him rather than try to go around the outside there. That gap was always disappearing very quickly. But now is Gannon going to try and make a move down the inside into turn 1? No, Faulkner might though, and gets into the back of the Audi as well. That's a couple of times down the last couple of laps where Faulkner's run into a car directly in front, but a bit of a gap forming behind now, so Gannon can focus on Regan in front and try and make up some points. Could have easily really come out in the lead of this race overall, but now sitting down in 9th in the Pro Silver category and even further back in the overall standings, try to make up for that error speeding into the pit lane. 4 minutes left in the race, still haven't seen a swap yet out in the lead of the race. I wonder if they're actually going to do it or not.
Surely they're going to. I mean, who knows? We'll have to wait and see, but it seems like they're just going to leave it till the end. Yeah, this is the main battle on track at the minute between Regan, Gannon, Faulkner, and Beck. Sorry, so we'll see how this continues. But just to check in again, Timothy Brace still looking pretty comfortable in the lead of the Pro Bronze class, 6th overall for Timothy Bray there. So great result so far if he can manage that. Great result it's looking like as well for Richard Jones in the Pro Silver class. He's gained 14 spots from his starting point on the grid. So cracking job as Claire either defending or overtaking, one of the two, on Cole Gray Pro Silver on Pro Bronze. Of course, doesn't technically matter for their points, but still that's a position made on track. And Gannon just tucking in behind Regan here as they come through for chicane. I dare say he's going to be having a look at shaping up Regan into turn 1, just as we've seen the guys do plenty of times already this race. A much wider line kind of initially from Regan, and then kind of straightening the car up a little bit earlier. I dare say that would have helped him just get the launch off the corner a little bit. How hard is Reagan going to defend? Not very is the answer. Here comes Gannon on the brakes. He's quite going to be able to get it stopped in time. He does hit the apex, and I think Reagan's doing a reasonable job of trying to hang on the outside of turn 1, what becomes the inside of turn 2, and he does. And Gannon at the minute, unless he can get the cut back into turn 3, which he can't quite, as Volkner has a big oversteer moment in the background. Yeah, Gannon doesn't quite get the move done, and looks like Volkner's rear tyres overheated from that little slider moment before, and that's caused his little half spin in 10th in that Pro Silver, and all of a sudden under pressure then from Ollie Morgan just behind.
Yeah, a little bit of an error through turn 2, and that just made turn 3 all the more difficult. So now very much under pressure. Has to, of course, calm it down a little bit and not take it as hard through the next couple of corners to keep the tyres cooling down, because once you overheat the tyres in iRacing, it's very easy to just spin corner after corner after corner if you're not careful about it. And out in front, it's Markovara still with a pretty hefty lead, not backing out, coming across to take what I believe is the white flag. So one more lap to go for the Finnish driver, and lapping just over 0.2 of a second. Is it the white flag? I think it should be the white flag.
Well, we'll see when they come back round next time by, but yeah, the clock should have run out before he gets to the checkered line. So yeah, this should be the final lap, but we'll keep an eye on that as we go. But like I say, at the minute, nothing happening at front. Moves are happening though between Gannon and Reagan just behind. So Gannon finally has got past Reagan to move up the spot to 8th in the Pro Silver class, and yeah, that's going to be the end of his progress now, I think, unless there's some surprises going on up ahead on this potential final lap.
Interesting that Markovara was lapping 2-3 quicker a lap than Kataya the last couple times by. It doesn't look like he's showing any signs of slowing down and waiting for his teammate. It could be interesting. I don't know why they wouldn't swap around the drivers if Kataya is serious about going for the championship. Maybe he's not serious about going for the championship and is happy for his teammate to take this pretty well-deserved win. Obviously got a bit lucky with a couple of drivers in front having issues in the pits, but still did very well to save that fuel and get out in front of teammate Kataya. We'll see now, I guess, if he's gonna let his teammate pass. The clock has run down to 0, so we should get the checkered flag now, and it doesn't look like he's gonna let his teammate pass.
No, like I say, Markovara coming round the final corner, checkered flag is waving. Is he going to suddenly lift before the start-finish line? He comes into pit lane. Is that just him to celebrate? It is. It's not for him to lift. So, shockingly, Markovara takes a win. So, congratulations to him. But potentially a huge issue for Kataya. You know, teammate out there of Markovara lost some important points potentially if he wants to win the championship. Kosh Kelly battling hard here with Ed Knight. It is side by side for second place in the Pro Bronze class. That's coming off the final corner. Who's going to get the run to the line? Ed Kelly's got a good run off the exit, but it's just going to be Kosh Kelly who takes it on the inside. So not quite sure where that came from at the last second there. Last time by, I didn't see that battle developing between Kelly and Knight, so potentially a little bit of a mistake somewhere maybe, but nice battle right to the line. And yeah, whilst we're looking at that, Carriget did take the win in the Pro Silver class, as we can see on screen for the Nitro Racing team. So yeah, cracking job for him, and yes, they took full advantage of the issues for Gannon and Rista just up ahead. Yeah, what a strange middle part of the race, Dane, with those couple of little issues in the pit stops for the Pro Silver guys. Dadswell having issues with potentially hardware at the start, causing his kind of challenge for the win to suffer. And in the end, we just didn't see kind of what we expected between the two race gear teams. Markovara holding on to the win over Kataya, the championship challenger.
Yeah, certainly very odd at the end, and a couple drivers having issues in the pit lane. Still don't know what happened to Rista. I'd love to know what happened in that instance. It just came out of the pit lane seemingly without fuel, stopped and towed back and out of the session. So that was also very weird. But yeah, nothing really usual about this race up at the front, at least. But we did have some very good racing throughout the rest of the field, as we always do in this series. It's great to see. I am very much looking forward to the season finale in a few weeks' time. See if we can finalize those champions, not just in the classes but also in the teams championship as well, which RaceGear have just scored some very good points towards. That's scored based on overall finishing positions, not based on car classes. So a 1-2 in that one, very useful indeed.
It certainly was. Like I say, it's going to be important for them to secure that championship. Right, so now that the race has now officially finished, the last cars are across the line, let's have a quick confirmation of those race results. We can see Mika Makavara did take the win by 1.459 seconds over Jussi Kataya in second. Tom Dadswell recovering to that third place. Impressive that he only finished 14 seconds down after all that, Dane. So showed that he certainly did have the pace kind of midway onwards. Steve Runfield then in fourth. Dominicus Yufasaya finished 4 laps down. And Anton Edrinsons, which saw had that issue right at the very start, disconnecting and being out of the race early on in the Pro Silver class. Alan Carragher, again, kind of coming from nowhere almost to take that Pro Silver win. It's a cracking job through the pit phase to jump. I'm pretty sure it was Stijn van Neeren who was then the next car up. So yeah, nice job from Alan there. Darren Adriansons finished in second, nearly 7 seconds down. Then it was Stijn van Neeren in third, Richard Jones fourth, Van Kalea in fifth with Jacob Boshoff in sixth, Anthony Beck seventh. Patrick Gannon recovered only to 8th position in class, 40 seconds down on the winner. Phil Reagan then in 9th with Christian Volkner in 10th, Ollie Morgan in 11th. Scott Rister did not finish 8 laps down. Braden Coates finished 12 laps down. And then in our Pro Bronze class, Timothy Braid, let's say, looked very, very comfortable out there all day long. 15-second gap over the next Pro Bronze runner of Kosh Kelly, who did not have such comfortable gap over Ed Knight. He line astern over the line, just under a tenth between them as they finished. Cole Gray then finishing in 4th, Alex Peck in 5th, Angel Pedrero in 6th, Darren Doherty 7th, Matt Knudsen in 8th, Kansas Gentry 9th, Dan Ocaranza in 10th, Luke Davis 11th, Steve Brown in 12th, Colin McKenzie in 13th, and then we've got a Nitro Racing string of Dave Erdin, Carlos Espada and David Villarano finishing 14th, 15th and 16th in that Pro Bronze class. So yeah, excitement there at the end. And right on cue, our first 2 cars that we have coming in for interview, Dane, are the 2 RaceGear cars, Mika Makavara and Jussi Kataya. So let's bring in Mika Makavara first of all to congratulate him on his race win. Congratulations, Miko. I mean, that kind of came out of nowhere a little bit for you. You had the issue for a couple of the Pro Silver guys up in front of you. You then managed to get the jump on your teammate Jussi in the pit phase. How did you make that work? How did you get the jump on him to take the race win in the pits?
Well, I have to say that no idea. It was a total surprise for me also that I came out at the front. But yeah, the Ferrari in front of me was so slow that I had to lift in every braking zone for most of the race, so maybe I just saved some fuel there and that got me the win. Which was quite surprising because at first practice we drive with Jussi, I was over a second slower than him, and then I kind of gained the speed during the training and managed to keep my head together in the race.
Yeah, it certainly makes sense. So maybe that little bit of fuel saving just made the difference. It was obviously important that you stayed, within reach before the pit stop, staying in that first group to make sure you're in contact and, like I say, able to capitalize.
Yeah, and also my in-lap was quite good. I was able to push 100% and I got it almost perfect. So I think I gained also on that lap almost a second compared to the previous laps.
And so how do you like Nurburgring generally? You're saying maybe you didn't feel like you had the pace kind of earlier on. Is Nurburgring kind of not really a favourite of yours? I mean, if so, that's pretty amazing then to take the win here.
Well, actually, it's my all-time favourite track if you don't count the Nordschleife.
Okay, well, perfect then to silver win at this track.
Yeah.
Next question for you, Miko. You obviously say we said it was your teammate Jussi who finished behind you. Jussi is really challenging for the championship here in the Finding Speed GT3 League. I mean, was there any communication between the two of you about what we needed to do for kind of UC's championship challenge?
Yes, we had that conversation during the race, but that well is so far away and there's one drop race, and I guess this was his drop race. And Jussi has driven perfectly all season, and I had that problem in the first race, so that was kind of my drop race, and then I couldn't participate in the previous race, so I can't afford to make any mistakes anymore.
Great, makes perfect sense. Yeah, so we're gonna have to wait and see how all those drop races are gonna take effect, as we're only seeing the total cumulative so far on our standings. So yeah, that's good information. And congratulations again, Mikko. Hopefully you have another strong run in 2 weeks' time at Suzuka to finish the season up.
Yeah, let's see. I've never raced there, so it's a new track for me.
Wow, that blew. How long have you been on iRacing, Mikko?
Maybe 2 years now, and
how have you never raced at Suzuka
I don't know.
2 years of iRacing?
I'm super slow at learning new tracks, so I try to avoid that.
Okay, well, so hopefully you enjoy Suzuka. Obviously, it's a favourite among many people. So yeah, I hope you get up to speed, and yeah, good luck practicing for the next 2 weeks, ready for that final round.
Yeah, thanks.
No problem. Speak to you later.
Bye bye.
Okay, great. So mind blown, Dane, at the end of the interview there with Mikko. I was expecting him to say he was just on a couple of months, and I was going to commend him on his pace, but no, it was the other way around. Right. Sorry, Dane, go on.
There's someone not driving at Suzuki yet after a couple of years on the service. Yeah, mind blowing is definitely the correct word there. Let's have a word then with second place driver then. Jussi Kataja joins us now. Congratulations on that second place. You led most of the race, but you had pressure behind throughout. You managed to build up a gap through the first couple of laps, but then lost it fairly quickly afterwards. Was there a problem with the car, or were you just not feeling the need to push too hard?
No, I took a slowdown in the Schumacher SS and had to give away the gap I had to Patrick, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense than the wild theories that Lee and I were coming up with in the comms booth, at least. After that, you couldn't really gap him again. You managed to do that at the beginning of the race, but then he kept right on your tail up until the pit stop. So you pitted a lap early. Is that because everyone else behind was saving fuel, or did you just pit early because you felt like it?
I think I could have gone one more lap, but obviously after the slowdown, I think I cooked the fronts, and after that I just didn't have any pace anymore, and then obviously I pitted to cool the tires down a little bit, and unfortunately I took I don't know, maybe 5 liters too much fuel, and that's how Mikko got past. But I think Mikko had more pace today and took better care of his car definitely today. So.
Oh, I think we must have just lost Dane there for a second. Sorry, UC. So I'll grab that back for you. So yeah, like I say, cracking drive all race long. So unfortunate that you couldn't quite get the run at the end, but yeah, second place I'm sure you're going to be happy with for your championship challenge. I mean, we're at Suzuka in 2 weeks' time. How are you feeling about picking up the challenge there?
Like every race, I'm gonna bring whatever I got, and let's see how far that takes me.
Yeah, well, hopefully it will be pretty fast. That'll be good to see in 2 weeks' time. UC, thank you very much for your time. Good to get a little bit of inside info as to what was happening in your race, and yeah, good luck for Suzuka in 2 weeks.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, great. So that will conclude our penultimate broadcast of this season 3 of the Finding Speed GT3 League. So we've had a cracker every race, something kind of new every race, and certainly we had that this time out with those issues at the front of the field in pit lane. Really kind of kept us on our toes there. So don't miss the coverage again, like I said, in 2 weeks' time from Suzuka. We've obviously got the clocks changing around the world, kind of tomorrow for the UK and Europe, and next week for the US. So Finding Speed will be at the same local UK time, which will mean it will be 1 hour later GMT, so still 8:30 UK time. Back here 2 weeks time for Suzuka. I've been Lee Thompson looking after your commentary alongside Dane Baird and Samuli Kumo running on the production, and we shall see you all in those 2 weeks. Bye bye.